You know, the days, the weeks, it's in the thousands. The fifth went into vigil in May of '05 because their closing date had been delayed. We now have from Boston 10 appeals at the highest Vatican tribunal, the equivalent of the Supreme Court, from the Archdiocese of Boston, plus at least 4 under my wing from other dioceses, including Noreen and Tony's, and a few other Catholic dioceses. Now, before you jump up and say, well, the chances of getting a favorable ruling, a ruling favorable to the parishioners, is roughly on the level of one of you displacing LeBron James as a starter for the Cavs. As I've gone around and suggested that this approach be followed, I've been very clear that the chances of success are very low. So the question that floats around the room is, then why the hell bother? And don't take my word for it. Talk to those who are doing it. And a range of answers comes forward. My excellent adventure in the West Wing of the Vatican we'll talk about a little bit later. We have, well, one thing about the Vatican Supreme Court, and I'll keep this fairly tame. For the first time ever, the prefect of the Signatura Apostolica, the Apostolic Signatura, the Chief Justice, in fact, is an American. The former Archbishop of St. Louis, Raymond Burke. And just as in looking at the nomination of Sonia Sotomayor, people are poring over, well, what has she done, what has she written, what has she said? It is fair game, without prejudging what Prefect Burke may do for the Boston appeals and the others, to ask oneself, well, what is his track record? And his track record as Archbishop of St. Louis is not too promising for parishioners who wish to push back from the pews, notably the excommunication of an entire parish council. Now, we also launched 6 civil suits in the judicial system of the popular and democratic, I mean the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's no longer a communist jurisdiction, but sometimes it feels like one. When I was in the oil business, we were drilling a very deep well offshore Angola. I had to fly back to New York to brief the results. I had some directors and some big muckamucks. And I began by clearing my throat and said, we've learned an awful lot from drilling this well. And one guy jumped up and said, gosh darn it, it means that it was dry as dust. Get to the damn point. We have learned an awful lot from our civil lawsuits. And we are willing to share those results because we think that some of that could be redeployed either in a very special case where there might be a trust deed or a documented trust or restriction on a particular parish, or maybe in the federal court system. Because as you may know, there are 2 class action lawsuits against the Holy See in the federal system that over the last 4 to 5 years have cleared a couple of hurdles. Now, these all have to do with allegations of sexual abuse. Parish property is a separate issue. But anyway, the legal front by itself could consume a lot of time. I'd be glad to talk to the few of you who might be interested in that one separately. 2 other things we've done. We have reached out to maybe 15 other dioceses, including you guys, New Orleans in the past, and others. Scranton, PA, Syracuse, New York City. Strategically, we have, by design, tried to open up a new front by going directly to the Secretariat of State. And don't confuse that with the American Department of State. In the Vatican governance, the Secretariat of State is really the office of the Prime Minister. It is the coordinating body. Now, Each congregation, each commission, each council is rather firm in what its own prerogatives are. But we figured that the canon law track is going to take us to a dead end. And so we decided to double up. And instead of addressing case by case these parish closings on the merits of whether the bishop dated the thing on December 15 or 16 and all of that stuff, we think there's a policy issue which the Vatican needs to address. And let me say, and I've inflicted this on some of you already, I come from the world of business. No human institution on the face of the globe, except for the Boston Red Sox, is entitled to eternal life. That's a fact. But institutions have their ups and then there's down. Welcome to it. Of the 83 parishes that were listed for suppression in Boston in May of '04, privately, if I were not dealing with Lennon, I might agree that as many as 20 or 25 of them had had it. It's time to move on. But what, in my experience, draws dozens and sometimes hundreds of people into a room like this on a beautiful Saturday is the notion that a very vibrant and financially viable parish is going to be thrown under the bus. And that prompts a feeling of anger and betrayal. And I'm a lifelong Catholic, or maybe I'm a convert, but this is wrong, and this is where I'm going to make my stand. And it is not a struggle of choice, it's a struggle of necessity. Because people tell me again and again and again, if I just walked away from this without doing anything, I'd never forgive myself. Now, the last point, and then we'll hear from the parishes, and this is the unintended but wonderful result of 5 years in Boston. And Tony, Noreen, Jason have been to some of the meetings. Not by design, not by affirmative action, not by quotas. The leadership that has emerged from the pews has been overwhelmingly the women. Now let's be clear about something. As the Council of Parishes, we are monomaniacal. That's one of the nicer things I've ever been called. There are doctrinal, liturgical, social issues that could break even this room into 15 or 16 pieces. And maybe those who have suffered through my meetings know this. We never touch those. We are concerned with safeguarding viable parishes. We've got two parishioner groups that sit side by side. One of them basically thinks that Vatican II was the work of the devil. And the other group is on the guitar mass wing of things. But never a cross word. Because, thank you, Richard Lennon and a few others, we have a single focus. I mean, parenthesis, I worked in Europe. The usual rumble in the European Union years ago when they went from the economic community to be the European Union, and they wanted to put a statue to honor the European who made all this possible. Well, it turned out that each country put forward one of its paesani. And finally, some guy said, no, there's only one person who's really brought this about. Let's put up a statue to Joseph Stalin, because that's why we're now all unified. So, in some deeper sense, I must acknowledge my debt to Dick Lennon.